Game with honor.
Greetings. I'm Richard. This is Heretic Knight Gaming, and I am here today to talk to you about getting into the wonderful hobby of miniature painting. Now, there could be lots of reasons as to why you're wanting to get into this hobby. Perhaps you are wanting to get into playing some wargaming, maybe the Warhammer 40,000 or Age of Sigmar, Star Wars Legions, or any one of the other number of games out there that involve conducting war with your little plastic toy soldiers. Or perhaps you are wanting to do a tabletop RPG and you've got a fearsome dragon that your party is going to be opposing. Face the right direction, warrior. In a glorious battle. And you want, to be able to actually have miniatures on the table to represent that there's a dragon. He's a very tiny dragon. Big dragons is the next encounter. Regardless, you've got there's lots of reasons as to why you're wanting to get in. Maybe you don't even want to play games. Maybe instead you want to take something like this, steady now, and do display pieces. Or maybe you're just wanting to get a gift for someone. You know someone who you think you would enjoy the hobby, and you're wondering, well, how could I get them a gift to, get them started? And that's what the purpose of this video sequence is going to be about. I'm going to be taking a look at a variety of starter kits, like this one here from Warhammer, that includes all of the miniatures, brushes, and paints that you need, with some exceptions with this one, which we'll talk about in a moment, in order to see if you want to get into this hobby. Now, do you, strictly speaking, need to buy anything besides the starter kits that I am going to show? Well, again, special considerations here, but the answer to that is no. These kits are going to give you the paints, the models, and the paint brushes. Nothing else is required. Yes, you are going to have to provide a cup for water. No, I don't use this one for paint. Are you crazy? You are going to have to also provide some kind of hard, non-porous surface to be able to put paint onto for thinning, potentially mixing, and just getting onto the miniatures. Especially since a lot of paint, is now sold in dropper bottles like this as opposed to pots like GW uses. As far as I'm aware, I think they're the last people that actually really use that style of paint. So, but that's still something you can easily find in your house. Just, a clamshell from a food package or something like that would work just as well. So, technically speaking, nothing else you need to get. However, there are some things ranging from I recommend it to really get this, that I would suggest before we get into talking about and reviewing these specific kits. To start off with, the thing that I say, buy this. Really, it's optional but not optional, and that would be a rattle can of primer. Make sure it is a rattle can of primer. This is Rust-Oleum 2X Ultra Cover. Whatever that marketing buzz term means. But the important part is that it is a flat black primer. Primer, not spray paint, primer. Do you need this? No. How much is it going to set you back? $5 to $7, depending on how much your favorite big box store charges. How much will it set you back if you buy the branded versions from, say, Games Workshop or Army Painter? Yeah, probably somewhere between $20 to $30. I know of let me backpedal on that. I know of a reason as to why you might want to buy the branded versions. And that is you are wanting to do color matching. For example, you've got a huge army of these little Space Marine guys here, and you're wanting to do a specific army, like, say, the Ultramarines. It might actually save you some time to prime them in Ultramarine blue, because that is your primary base color. that specific scenario aside, I know of no reason as to why you would want to buy the name brand rattle cans over the cheaper Rust-Oleum stuff. The technology for paint deliverance is the same. There might be some difference in the actual paint quality, but I've never seen any evidence to suggest this. You're just as well off with this $6-ish can of paint as you are with the $20 to $30 cans of paint that are from the name brands. Now, why do you want to do this? Primarily, it's for preservation of your paint job. This is one of the first miniatures that I have ever painted. It was back when I was living in Arizona, so that would be 20-ish years ago, and the paint on it is still fine. I played multiple games of D&D with this character, 12-hour sessions. Those were the days. He's been moved multiple times, and there is no damage to the paint job on there. Why? Well, two reasons. One, I sealed him with a varnish, and two, he was primed. There is a primed undercoat on here. The whole job of primer, regardless of whether it's for miniatures or painting your house, is it prepares the surface so that way paint will adhere well to it. Brent from Goobertown Hobbies actually has done a rather well thought out experiment video sort of proving this, that yeah, it does improve the durability of paint jobs if you prime the minis. I do recommend that video, and I'll link to it in the description below. But will it wreck your miniature? No. Can I take this plain plastic little monster guy here and start painting him with no repercussions? Yes. Will it potentially result in the paint wearing off with heavy use? Possibly. But it's one of those things where, especially for getting a can of black primer, one, it's not going to hurt. There's absolutely no scenario in which priming hurts your miniature unless you prime it really, really bad. Two, there are two specific types of painting which are very common in the miniature world: zenithal highlighting and a technique that uses zenithal highlighting called slap chop, which involves you priming flat black first and then doing a white prime at an angle to sort of simulate light and shadow. So a can of black primer is not going to go to waste if you stick with the hobby. And even if you don't, it can be useful to have around the house for various things. Do make sure when you go out to buy this, you get flat. Pay attention to the lid. If the lid is glossy, you're buying the wrong paint. These lids will, generally speaking, reflect the finish of the paint. So if the can of paint that you have picked up has a shiny black top, it is a gloss paint, and it is not going to work well for miniatures. You want flat. All right, that's enough about primers. Moving down on my list. Recommended, definitely not necessary, and that would be a utility knife or an X-Acto blade, hobby knife. They go by a variety of names. Now you do have to be careful with this. They are razors, and you know the saying, razor sharp. These things will slice you open without care nor warning. So you do need to be cautious with these. If you are a minor watching this video, please, parental permission, I don't want to be responsible for accidents. That said, the reason why you need these is because of how miniatures are produced. Whether the miniatures are being produced on a sprue like this, or you are buying them individually in a blister pack like this, which no, you cannot buy this blister pack. Notice the company, TSR, they've been out of business for a while. There's not even a barcode on this thing. That's how old it is. But it doesn't matter. Even resin prints potentially can have flaws in the printing process that you need to clean up. But specifically for either blister pack, including the metal ones, or sprue miniatures, you are going to have what are called mold lines. because how these are produced is you have two sides of a mold that are squished together, and then the material is injected in between. And it doesn't matter how tightly they're squished together, there's going to be a little bit of leakage. Now, high quality miniatures aren't going to have very much of this. And there's ways that they can hide the lines to make it so that you barely have to do any cleanup, but you will have to do cleanup. Now, do you have to use this to do it? No, there are other ways. But this tool here is really well suited for doing a lot of different types of cleanup on the models. So this one tool here, which will run you between $3 to $5, depending on where you buy it, and depending on whether or not you get additional blades, will solve pretty much all of your cleanup troubles. The final thing on the list of things that, yeah, nice to have, but definitely don't sweat it if you don't got it, and that is a dry palette, and specifically a dry palette. If you are just doing one of these kits, I do not recommend what is called a wet palette. Now, you will want to eventually invest in one of these, but wet palettes have a lot of additional faffing about. You've got this special paper, which you do need to read the manual to use correctly. You can't just put water on this and expect it to work. You've got this sponge, which is going to hold the water, and if you don't take care of it, it will get all nasty and moldy and stuff. And it's just a lot of additional messing around when you want to go paint. And they're not needed, especially not if you're just painting one or two models at a time. So I do not recommend a wet palette to start with. And, quick cut. Trying to do videos with a cold is interesting. As I was saying, you're going to need a dry palette. Even if you do eventually invest in a wet palette, there will still be scenarios in which a dry palette will be useful. I use both tools frequently, so you are not wasting your investment on this. And it's not much of an investment. I don't know how much a single little plate like this would cost. I can't imagine more than $1 or $2, because when I poked my head in Walmart real quick the other day, you could get a pack of 3 of different sizes for like $3. So they're, again, pretty cheap, and it will serve you quite well throughout your entire painting journey. Now, things I do not recommend that you buy outside of your chosen starter kit. Item number 1, additional brushes. You don't need them. The kit is going to give you all the brushes that you need. Item number 2, additional paints. Again, the kit is going to give you all the paints that you need. I will eventually talk about paints and brushes and what to invest in and what are some of the pros and cons, but that is later on down the line. One last thing before I get to my special case here. I would strongly recommend, regardless of how they turn out, keeping your initial models. This model right here, like I said, is the very first model that I ever painted. It in fact came from a painting kit, a Ralpartha painting kit, which does age me a little bit. And I think, although I'm not entirely certain, that this is the second model that I ever painted. And I'm not sure how well this comes across on the camera, but you can see there's, a little bit of difference in detail. This one has more parts. I actually colored out the belts. Did a little bit more washing, like in the chainmail and stuff, to try to give a little bit more definition. Definitely a better paint job than my first guy here. I still like this little mace guy. And definitely a far cry from, say, the paint job that I did on my Grey Knights Chaplain conversion here. It's not only a significantly more complex model and larger, but I did a lot better job. Or at least I think I did a lot better job. And I would even recommend keeping your mistakes. For example, this gold dragon here was when I had the brilliant idea of, hey, I know how I can paint a gold dragon. I'll just paint the entire thing in a gold metallic paint and I'll have a gold dragon. And I did that and I realized, oh, this is not going to work at all. That's why his mouth isn't finished. I'm not sure how well that comes across the camera, but his mouth's completely unpainted pewter. Because I just kind of stopped here. I was like, oh, well, how do I fix this? I never did. So I sort of keep him around as a reminder of, yeah, don't do this. So yeah, I would say keep your first models. I think it can be a very nice way of later on down the line, when you've gotten better, to go back and look to see where you started and how far you've come. All right, final thing for this video, talking about the special case, the Warhammer kit here, which is the first one that we're going to go over. I'm not going over this one first because I necessarily think it's the best. I'm going over it first because Warhammer and Games Workshop's kind of like the 800-pound gorilla in the room when it comes to miniatures. Love it or hate it, Games Workshop has a tremendous presence in the miniature hobby. You cannot go into a gaming hobby shop and not encounter Warhammer miniatures. It's not a thing that's going to happen. Between Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar, those are two immensely popular lines. Even if you're not interested in the gaming systems, they've got some really good models in there. And so yeah, that's why I'm starting off with this. There's a couple of extra things here. One is a must, one is a highly recommended. The must is a pair of hobby snips, like these. And that is because, well, as I've shown, Games Workshop stuff, with the exception of Middle-earth, comes on sprues. You have got to get these bits off the sprue. And how you want to do that is with these. These tools are specifically designed to go in and snip stuff out like this. Now, this particular one here is like a $3-4 one from Walmart. It works well enough. You can buy, I think, like $20-30, like if you're getting like what are called the God Hand snips, which is what like the high-end Gunpla model people use. Pardon. I really wanted to wait for this cold to get over, but it's hanging around too long and I want to get this video done. Okay. So yeah, like you can get ridiculously expensive snips. Just get the Walmart one, you know, especially for like this kit here. You don't need God hands for this. But you do need these. Could you technically use the hobby knife to cut them out, or maybe even a pair of regular scissors? Well, for one, I'm not sure the regular scissors would actually be able to get in to a lot of these little gates here to actually do the snipping. And two, that's you run the risk of damaging the model, even using this, because again, this isn't really meant to cut through things like this. This is meant more to like either slice paper or shave things off. And so it's not really the use intended, and so you run a pretty good risk of damaging your models and potentially damaging yourself, because you're going to be having to use a fair amount of force to try to cut through these connection points. So this, honestly, is a must-buy if you are doing the Games Workshop paint kits. And especially if you're going to continue on with Games Workshop, everything is on these. Everything. Okay. Now, the thing that I highly recommend, but is definitely not needed, especially not for this kit, because this is what's called push fit, and that is plastic cement. Basically, this is a solvent that melts the plastic, so that way when you put two pieces together, they fuse and become one piece. Now, you don't need that for push fit models. They will work just fine without the glue. However, they will still have small little gaps. And with the glue sort of melting the plastic together, you can minimize and sometimes make completely disappear those small little gaps. It makes for a slightly better quality model. It also makes for a stronger model if they're glued, fused together, instead of just pushed together like, you know, the standard push fit stuff. And of course the cat feeder is going to go off right now. And you are going to need to use this for the non-push fit style models. For example, my little chaplain here, he was not push fit. I had to use this in order to put this model together. There was no choice. So for the kit, not necessary, but I would strongly recommend it. Now, as to where to get this, your local gaming shop should carry it. This particular one is Mr. Cement. I did, in fact, buy this bottle from my local game shop. The brand name honestly doesn't matter. It's a fairly common chemical solvent for dissolving this type of plastic. It's really common. If for some reason you have like a very small hobby shop that doesn't necessarily carry all of the various supplies needed for model assembly, any craft store is going to also have this stuff. And that's it, at least for this video. Next up, we're going to take a look at this kit here. After that, we'll take a look at the Reaper Core Paint Skill Kit. And then we'll see what's available after that. I do plan on taking a look at the Army Painter Game Master series, but I think they're like revamping those or re-releasing those after they released their Fanatic paint line. They're basically paint line 2.0. So we'll see. If you like this video, a thumbs up would be greatly appreciated. And if you didn't like it, that is unfortunate. And the thumbs down button is right next to it. Until next time.